I have been studying this for so many years now, and I find this is the most important thing to warn anybody about. Um, but I've compiled most of all of the literature I could find readily over the years. Not that I have as much as I would like. Um, Not enough sources, stuff like that. But I have enough to unravel everything that a person might want to know. And I'm about to start playing various videos, adding my own commentary and explanations, going further, connecting dots that most people, that are covering this type of content don't bounce around to connect together for people or keep in mind for people. So basically, it's starting off Vatican subversion of the world. The Vatican has the only leader that claims that he has sole authority and sole right to rule the world. And there's been hundreds of millions of people throughout history that have been trying to bring power underneath the Vatican because they all likewise believe that the Pope has authority to rule the world, and the Pope is their only source of authority in the world that they can follow to maintain their religious conscience, because they believe the Pope is godly, established by God, and all this stuff that just isn't true. In the 1500s, it was exposed that the Vatican is just pagans, Luciferians. They matched the Bible's Antichrist, Codeword Barbelon, stuff like that, which you don't have to believe in Christianity to recognize that, hey, these people control the world. They've, through Machiavellian means, which is something a person should study on their own. It's basically deceptive, manipulative. It's not narcissism, it is Machiavellianism. Machiavellianism is like the next level to narcissism. So you got manipulative, cunning, strategic thinking, pragmatism, focus on achieving goals, only their goals matter. And in the case of the Vatican, it's they can do any evil for the greater means of establishing control underneath the Pope. Willingness to deceive and exploit, lack of concern for morality, such as for a greater good perception, which is just, we can be as evil as we want to be for a greater good. And think of like Nazis. They were willing to kill the Jews because they perceived it was for a greater good, and they were just sociopathic. That's how you make sociopathic people. They have no conscience. Willingness to use others for personal gain, that's within their rules. There is certain documents that I will have to read out to explain how they are permitted to do anything for their sense of taking over, and they have been doing all this evil stuff. And I would say even the Nazis were all Catholic and Jesuit run. People trying to detract from that by saying Hitler was anti-Catholic and Luciferian, but the Catholics are just Luciferian, and they're not Christian. They don't follow the Bible, they follow the Pope, who has always been pagan since Constantine. They don't have affection in personal relationships. They don't empathize with their victims because they lower their victims as a perception to abuse them. They think that anyone outside the Vatican is a heretic and is rightfully right to murder, right to torture, right to everything evil against those people. And this is true. And it's always been true throughout history. They've murdered hundreds of millions of people throughout history and tortured tens of millions of people. That was what the Inquisitions were about. It wasn't about witchcraft. It was about the heretics, according to them, that were exposing them, that read their Bibles. They were burning anybody that would read a Bible. They were suppressing the Bible, torturing all these Christians since Constantine. It wasn't just something in the 1500s. It wasn't just in 1200s. It was from their beginning up to the 1500s, when they could no longer openly do all this stuff. When they were exposed, they had to go underground, so they created different Templar orders to go underground. So I'm going to cut it there. So to explain my playlist, I haven't organized it as much as I would like. I do have other playlists that are shorter, that have a little more breakdown. I would recommend reading Codeword Barbelon, or going to my playlist, or to First Amendment Radio, listening to all of it. It's a lot of hours. It's more than 21 clips. It's about 80 plus, so it's like 80 hours. I have the book I'll be pulling citations from, and I'll maybe try and take some pictures of the pages for citations, but I might just do the pages and relay the citations that the book takes from as well, and leave it at that, so I can just convey the information. It has a whole lot of information about all of this, from the 1500s, and everything about the Jesuits, everything about secret societies that they created, and all of their occultism, Luciferianism, everything. It's there's no question in anyone's mind who studies this content of what is true, what is not true. Everybody knows, and that is the collection of stuff that I'm taking from. Now, I also have amazing discoveries. They are Seventh-day Adventists. That's Walter Veith. He is a Christian historicist who is a Seventh-day Adventist. One main issue, which I also have in my playlist, somewhere down here, occult Freemasonic origins of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. They are Freemasonic, which is Luciferian in origins, and false prophet origins. It's just another cult. Walter Veith, he's very smart. He does have a lot of history, so I do take from him a bit, but I would not take any of his views too seriously until you verify whether it's true or not. Don't just accept what he says. Don't look at him as a higher authority. He's part of a Masonic cult, and inadvertently. So that's a very sad thing. He is still a good source of some history. It's just, you got to keep an open mind. Don't just take all this stuff for whatever any person says. Make sure it's true or not first. And there will be some views within some of this content that I don't agree with. I've tried to counteract that by adding different videos. Like, I do have some people, they believe in the tribulation still. I went and verified whether that was true or not, because somebody asked me to evaluate it. And, after checking all the verses, checking back and forth between the Bible and all the views that they provide, I came to the conclusion that they are not biblically based. They pull context. Well, they don't pull context. They pull verses out of its context and try and say that it applies this, when in reality, in the full context of each chapter that they've done that with, there is no way to glean what view that they have out of it. And the technical words is exegesis versus eisegesis. And eisegesis is when you apply context from outside of your Bible into your Bible, and you're basically confirmation biasing that it's going to say something, and in the context of that chapter, you'd have to use exegesis to see what the whole chapter is saying, what the verse is actually applied to, and that's important to do before you do any eisegesis, because some eisegesis is proper. You might be able to apply something from outside within that does apply, but you can't make doctrine such a way without verifying that that's what the Bible is actually trying to say, which takes exegesis. So with pre-trib, I went and looked. I think I have these videos up. Maybe. Yeah. Alright, so John Nelson Darby. He was likely a Freemason. I find it irrefutable that he was. He is producing false doctrine. That false doctrine comes from Manuel Lacunza, a Jesuit, and Darby picked it up, and his church ended up getting it famous. His acolytes got it famous, and it's from the same church that Aleister Crowley comes from. So to me, it's very likely that that was a Jesuit church, because all of the occult stuff comes from the Jesuits. And Aleister Crowley was probably a different part of that, which, the Crowleyan Luciferians went into Hollywood, took that over, and they're peddling this false doctrine and made it famous. So, in my view, it's all those connect together. So a lot of this stuff is going to be Christian based, and if you're not a Christian, I would hope that you might evaluate all of this. You can consider me an idiot for still believing in the Bible. You can consider me foolish or crazy maybe, but I am portraying a people that they don't follow the Bible. For one, they follow the Pope, who pretends to be Christian and stuff like that. They follow the Jesuits and stuff like that. Well over 1,000 years of history of culminations, creating what we have today. And most people don't know anything about this history. It's been very obscure, and it's been suppressed, I would say. There's a lot of things that, we've learned in history, because I was agnostic originally. So there's a lot of stuff that we learned in America and the world about history that is lacking a lot of information to understand the full picture. Like I was talking about Hitler being Catholic earlier. It is true. It just might not seem that way if you just take what has been portrayed about history without evaluating the historians who actually connected those dots together and realized, hey, all of this was Catholic and Jesuitical. And Jesuitical is to say that it was occult deception, and it was basically just another Catholic Inquisition and another attempt at a takeover to bring things back to the ancient ways, And, things got out of hand, and there was a lot of Hegelian dialectic going on. I don't know exactly why things went the way it did in particular, but I know the connections that everybody had together. So there's something very nefarious there, and it's worth, hundreds, thousands of historians coming together and evaluating the full truth of the situation as investigators. And it just hasn't been done. There's very few that have, and the ones that did, they're just connecting dots that, throughout history, all of these dots connect. Any event in history always has a Catholic behind it, always has a Jesuit behind it, or right nearby influencing things. A Freemason, some occult entity that ties back into all this Catholicism and the attempt to take over the world, because that's what they want. That's what they've wanted for hundreds, over 1,000 years. That's been their sole goal. That's been their sole belief, and they'll do anything to get there. Anything. That's just how they originated. That's what they've always been about. And there's no other group in the world, other than maybe Islam, that believes that they have the right to do these things. So we're going to get to this video. Now, this video doesn't have any really good quality or anything. So just take it as is. Alright, I'm going to do some commentary as well. So it looks like George Bush Sr. with his cardinal or bishop or whatever. And I'm actually going to pause it. I'm going to go back to Codeword Barbelon and get some information on that. Alright, so I'm taking from Codeword Barbelon, chapter about Skull and Bones, which George Bush Jr. was Skull and Bones, but this video will cover some more stuff about certain dictators and stuff, which I'll go back on as well. I'm going to start now. So during his presidential campaign for 2000, Mr. George W. Bush Jr. gave a 90-minute interview on July 31st with the managing editor of Time magazine, which paper Jesuit professor Carroll Quigley tells us is Illuminati controlled. Now, Carroll Quigley was a teacher of Bill Clinton as well. So I say more on this later in the chapter titled The Rhodes Game. At one point in the interview, Walter Isaacson asked Mr. Bush whether it troubled him at all that he had been initiated into the secret society of Skull and Bones, to which Bush responded exuberantly, "No qualms at all, I was honored." The problem with that response is that the secrets of this order mark its members as debauchees with skeletons in their closets. The members of Skull and Bones are required to take an oath that completely absolves them from, takes precedence over, allegiance to any nation or king or government or constitution, including the negating of any subsequent oath which they may be required to take. That conflicts with the interest of the orders, that is. To whom, then, do they swear their ultimate allegiance? To answer this question, we must go back to the origin of the order and examine its initiation rituals. And I'll skip that part. So, the history of Skull and Bones. The masterminds behind the formation of Skull and Bones were William Huntington Russell and Alphonso Taft. Russell, while on a student tour of Germany, was initiated into the Illuminati, which I will have to go and explain what the Illuminati is as well. So, he returned to America, taking with him a charter to found a society for promulgating his newfound wisdom, or illumination. A year later, in 1832, a group of Yale undergraduates, led by Russell and Alphonso Taft, formed a society called the Skull and Bones, modeled after the old Phi Beta Kappa Society of 1776, and set up as Chapter 322 of the German Illuminati, founded by Jesuit Adam Weishaupt. So that's getting into the meat and bones of what is the Illuminati. They were formed by Adam Weishaupt, a Jesuit professor, during the suppression of the Jesuits by the Vatican, because the Vatican had to appease the masses because the Jesuits were being banned from so many nations for all the evil stuff they were doing. Over 60 nations, including Catholic ones, and even the Pope said they're abolished forever and ever and ever. Yet, they killed that Pope, even according to that own Pope's words, and got reinstated 40 years later by another Pope, when it was ripe time to bring him back. So, why would a Jesuit professor create an Illuminati? And then you go back, look at who the founder of the Jesuits were in the first place. It was Ignatius Loyola, and he was an Alumbrados of the 1400s of Spain, and that's verifiable history. So that's when the Vatican had to take on the occult and the Gnostic origins of their own self to go into their occultism and dark side to pretty much go underground and take back over the world that they were losing so much control of in the 1500s due to all the evil they were doing. And as the Jesuits became more wide known for all their evil, they had to go underground even deeper, especially when they got suppressed, which is when you end up with the Illuminati, or Alumbrados, which is what Ignatius Loyola was. And that's pretty much what this is covering. I'll go play a video later on that as well. So Skull and Bones, the founders were part of the Illuminati, or Jesuitism, that is. As at the end of the day, all these people at the top end, all the Freemasons, Rosicrucians, Illuminati, all the literary societies and different secret societies at the top end, it's all, you become Knights of Malta, Knights Templar orders and stuff like that. And that's just to say that you become a Catholic, a Templar, and a Luciferian, because at the end of the day, all these people are Luciferian. And I'll put it this way. Anything pagan is satanic and Luciferian. And the Vatican itself admits that it has adopted every tradition of anything pagan. They've taken it under their wing. So anything satanic, anything Luciferian, the Vatican has consumed and amalgamated within itself. And that's the context of what we're dealing with here. Alright, we're going to get on to Mussolini. Let me pause this real quick, get back to that book, Codeword Barbelon. Okay, so, here's a chapter about Hitler, Mussolini, Marx, and Stalin, good students of the Jesuits. Few people have since matched Ignatius Loyola's zeal, his discipline, or his calculating cruelty. Few people, I say, apart from Hitler, Mussolini, Marx, and Stalin, all good students of Jesuits. This zealot, called Loyola, was described by the police records of his town as violent, vindictive, and dangerous. His philosophy of the utility of violence and Machiavellian diplomacy was expressly incorporated into the constitutions and the extreme oath he penned for his order. It was the enduring legacy of this irascible rascal that prompted James Atkin Wiley to lament, quote, "What a harvest of plots, tumults, seditions, revolutions, torturings, poisonings, assassinations, regicides, and massacres has Christendom reaped from the seed sown by the Jesuits." And this was common knowledge back in, even from the 1600s up to the 1800s when James Atkin Wiley was writing about it. Yes, it is a little known fact that Hitler, Mussolini, Marx, and Stalin, the rah-rah boys of Europe, were all trained by Jesuits. This leading fact is too often ignored by historians and is very important to understand. All of these men would later become the vassals of the school of Loyola after having been under the blighting influence of the Jesuits. Even Kurt Heinrich Himmler, head of Hitler's SS, and Joseph Goebbels, Hitler's official minister of enlightenment and propaganda from 1933 to 1945, were both Jesuit priests in full communion with the church. And Hitler even said that he based Himmler and the SS off of Ignatius and the Society of Jesuits. The predicates contained in these statements are explosive. They implicate the hand of the Catholic Church in the First and Second World Wars, as well as in the Communist Revolution, which I would recommend studying the Stasha as well. That was a Catholic Nazi inquisition against the Croatian Serbs and Orthodox Serbs. This is the smoking gun, and we intend to prove beyond all reasonable shadow of doubt that Jesuitism was a source from whence all these evils sprang. The father of communism, Karl Marx, was trained by the Jesuits inside the British Museum in 1848. Likewise, Joseph Stalin studied at the Jesuit seminary in Tiflis, or Tblisi is the, Russian version, Soviet Georgia, to be educated for the priesthood. Stalin, who trained for the Jesuit priesthood, was Lenin's right-hand man in 1922, when Lenin formally lifted the official ban on the Jesuits in Soviet Russia. Stalin and Lenin were both Jesuit-trained Jews, Bolsheviks, and Grand Orient Lodge 33-degree Freemasons. Here's another fact worthy of mention. On page 21 of the book, The Rise of Nations in the Soviet Union, published by none other than the Council of Foreign Relations, which is Jesuitical, we learn more about the Jesuit influence in Russia under Stalin. This book quotes Friedrich Engels, who wrote, "Russian diplomacy formed a kind of new Jesuit order, quite powerful enough to overcome even the Tsar's whims, and it is the secret society, that is the Jesuit order, recruited mostly from foreign aristocrats, that has lifted the Russian state to its present position of power. The Jesuit order thus became the Russian diplomatic corps," and that's what Paul Blackstock from the Russian Menace to Europe in 1952 on page 26 and 32 said. Then there was Benito Mussolini, the Italian dictator and fascist leader. He too was trained by Jesuits in Geneva, Switzerland, at the Gymnase Cantonal di Neuchâtel. On coming to power in Italy, he appointed as his advisor and confessor a Jesuit father, Pietro Tacci Venturi, who was the powerful secretary of the Society of Jesuits. Most people would be blown out of their cotton socks to learn that it was the Jesuits who perfected the tenets of communism for the overthrow of Tsarist Russia in the Revolution of February 1918. History confirms that Grigory Efimovich Rasputin, spiritual counselor to the Tsar, exercised sinister and mysterious control over the imperial Russian family just before the Soviet Revolution. The magical and lustful Rasputin was a faithful Catholic monk working undercover, a crypto-Jesuit working to undermine the Tsar. According to Jack Chick, quote, "No one suspected that the magical powers Rasputin used were the spiritual exercises of Loyola," unquote, which this book covers the spiritual exercises. I highly recommend getting this book. It has all the sourced information so you could study further beyond this book as well. It's well sourced, well cited. When Lenin finally, quote, arrived in Moscow, that is after the Tsar's overthrow, crowds of Orthodox civilians and soldiers greeted him with banners and icons of the Virgin Mary, unquote. Insurrection, said Lenin, is an art. This he learnt from the Jesuits. Hitler's confession of faith, quote, "I am now as before a Catholic and will always remain so," unquote. Despite him becoming a Luciferian, he was still a Catholic, because that's compatible. Catholics are just Luciferians at the top end. Hitler told Gerhard Engel, one of his generals, in 1941, further proof of Hitler's allegiance to Catholicism is evinced from the fact that in 1941, a Croatian Catholic, that is Dr. Ante Pavlovic, who formed the Ustasha, or Ustashi, the leaders of which were all Dominican and Franciscan monks, thus making the Ustasha an integral part of the Roman Catholic Church. In 1941, Adolf Hitler put the Ustasha into power, in compliance with the Vatican Third Reich Concordat of July 20th, 1933. Under the Concordat, Dr. Ante Pavlovic, the dictator of Croatia, with the direct aid of the Archbishop of Zagreb, Cardinal Alojzij Stepanek, instructed the Ustasha to implement a program of forced conversion of the Croatian population to Catholicism. 840,000 people were murdered when they refused to become Roman Catholics, which I have a video on my playlist that it's like 6 parts maybe, and it shows all of this and how there was no help for any of those people from the Catholic Church or from even Hitler's own regime. One of the most widely respected studies of Vatican involvement in the Croatia genocide is The Silence of Pius X11 by Carlo Falconi. Falconi states that 299 Orthodox churches were destroyed, some 300 Orthodox priests and 5 bishops were murdered, and some 400 Orthodox priests were transported to concentration camps. The Ustasha also assassinated the king of Yugoslavia, Alexander I, who was against the Nazi-Catholic alliance. Quote, in an official document dated as late as May 8, 1944, His Eminence Archbishop Stepanek, head of the Catholic hierarchy in Nazi Croatia, who later convicted of war crimes, informed the Holy Father that, to date, 244,000 Orthodox Serbs have been converted to the Church of God. Yet, half of those people probably they murdered as soon as they converted. After the genocide and conversions were over, the Ustasha moved much of their loot, that is gold, to Rome, where it still sits, enriching the Vatican coffers. So, I'm going to skip some of that, because we don't need to know all that. It's good to read. It's just not relevant to what I'm trying to just get across before we start these videos. So, was Hitler a Jesuit? Reading between the lines. Hitler was not only a faithful son of the Catholic Church, he was also a good student of the Jesuits. This is something Hitler said, and it's an excerpt. I've learned much from the order of the Jesuits. Until now, there has never been anything more grandiose on the earth than the hierarchical organization of the Catholic Church. I transferred much of this organization into my own party. He then ended his speech abruptly saying, I can't say any more. So why did Hitler say I can't say any more? Otto Strasser, one of the founders of the Nazi Party and author of the book Hitler and I, tells us that even Hitler's book Mein Kampf was ghostwritten by a Jesuit priest called Bernhard Steinfler. Another source states, quote, "It seems certain that Father Bernhard Steinfler twice revised the manuscript." Father Steinfler writes and rewrites and edits Hitler's manuscript, corrects his grammar, works on his poise. Reader, Hitler was not a writer. As Hitler once said, "Above all, I've learned from the Jesuits, and so did Lenin too, as far as I recall. The world has never known anything quite so splendid as the hierarchical structure of the Catholic Church. There were quite a few things that I simply appropriated from the Jesuits for the use of the party." How could Hitler borrow so much from the Jesuits unless he himself was deeply initiated into that order? Walter Schellenberg was a Jesuit coadjutor and the former chief of Nazi counter-espionage. At his trial at Nuremberg, and before being sentenced to death for war crimes, Schellenberg confessed, "The SS organization had been instituted by Himmler according to the principles of the Jesuit order. Their regulations and the spiritual exercises prescribed by Ignatius of Loyola were the model Himmler tried to copy exactly. Himmler's title as Supreme Chief of the SS was to be equivalent of the Jesuits' general, and the whole Nazi structure was a close imitation of the Catholic churches." Alright, so, this also has a chapter about Hitler's rise to power, its Baxter's intrigue and all that, coming after that last chapter. So, it's pretty damning. This video, which we'll now get back to, is just a small portion of the literature covering this stuff. It's just a breakdown of where, just to try and convince people to start studying. So we'll finish this video up, and then I will get to the next one about the Jesuits and the Alumbrados, and then I'll get to one other very important one about modern politics that people might not be ready to hear or want to hear. So let's go ahead and finish this video off. Alright, I am going to stop it there and show some stuff. Alright, so Klaus Schwab, he was educated at University of Freiburg and Harvard, which you got to ask yourself, why do they have all this Latin and pagan symbology and Catholic symbology? But mainly, although his father was baptized Lutheran, Schwab was raised Catholic. And any Catholic answers to the Pope as the top, their top dignity, their top master in place of God, which is Antichrist. So here we have National Catholic Register. Great Reset plan parallels some of Pope's initiatives, but there's crucial differences. It's worth reading. That's the link. NC Register. You can just look up Great Reset plan parallels some of Pope's initiatives, which the Great Reset is run by, Joe Biden also backs it, which Joe Biden's a Catholic. It's not surprising. Justin Trudeau is also Catholic. Canada is a Catholic colony, basically. And all these other people are Catholics and Jesuits and all that. So it's not surprising that those people support the Great Reset and what is good for the Vatican. Now, all those people answer to the Pope. That's what the Great Reset and New World Order is. It's called ecumenism. That's where they're uniting all the denominations that all keep paganism as well and have been subverted by Jesuits and created by Jesuits and Freemasons. And also that's where all the pagan religions are uniting under the Vatican as well, because the Vatican is just the head of paganism, the head of Luciferianism in the world. Now, here's a direct message between the Pope and Klaus Schwab, which, if you know anything about Klaus Schwab, have been following that New World Order stuff, you need to recognize he's just a Jesuit. He was educated at Jesuit universities, I'm pretty certain. I mean, I know Harvard is. I thought there was one that was openly Jesuit that he went to, but clearly, oh yeah, this, I wanted to wait on the Trump side of things, but Trump is also a Jesuit, so is Anthony Fauci. This is a good website and article to go evaluate these two, both of them. That is Time Watch Ministries, Donald Trump's secret Jesuit agent, Almatech. I'm going to go ahead and get into it, I guess. On top of Klaus Schwab, George Trump went to, they got all the paganism, pagan symbology, Latin, all that. It's just another Jesuit university, which one of those articles will unravel how they are. But Trump also went to Georgetown University, Fordham University. Fordham is directly, as you can read on the lower part, Fordham is the oldest Catholic and Jesuit university in the northeastern United States. They got the emblem and everything. So is Wharton. Now, beyond that, so I went to covertly Jesuit-controlled University of Pennsylvania. The University of Pennsylvania is funded by the Papal Court Jews, notably the Annenberg Foundation. That's where you'd want to start. Started by Papal Knight and Hofstede Walter Hubert Annenberg. He was a Papal Knight, attended the University of Pennsylvania in his youth, later established the Annenberg School for Communication, Knight Commander of the Order of St. Gregory the Great. So that's what you'd want to look. And then you got David L. Cohen, University of Pennsylvania. Yeah. So Ivanka was University of Pennsylvania, and Trump Jr., University of Pennsylvania. His other son's going to Georgetown. That's a big Jesuit college, openly Jesuit. So he's sending his kids to Jesuit colleges, and yeah, he was pretending to be a Protestant, sending his kids to Jesuit colleges. He's been to Jesuit college himself. He's pro-Catholic, basically. So Klaus Schwab, we were seeing how they were pretty much all Jesuits and all that. Now, I'm not going to recommend going through these websites, but those two articles are pretty important. So even Jesuit Georgetown Voice, is talking real good stuff about Donald Trump. Himself attended the University of Pennsylvania Wharton School of Business. Many of his staff have attended Georgetown, so he's putting in his staff from Georgetown. His second son, Eric Trump, graduated with a degree in finance and management. Also serves Georgetown's Business Society and Public Policy Initiative. So they're all Jesuits, and they all answer to the Pope. And, his daughter was a student as well. Penn's Wharton School of Business, where she graduated as well. His staff are also Georgetown alumni. Paul Manafort. All of this stuff, even Steve Bannon. They're all just Jesuits. Even William Barr. Now, when it says raised Jewish, you could look into my playlist. Actually, I'd recommend looking up Jacob Frank, going a deep dive study on Jacob Frank, Frankism and stuff. They were led into Gnostic Kabbalism, and they killed all the Torah-following Jews. And most of those people went and joined the Catholic Church. So it's no surprise that he might have been raised Jewish, but later converted, because his version of Jewish was Kabbalist Gnosticism, probably. So Barr was raised as a Catholic. So he answers to the Pope as well. Anthony Fauci, College of the Holy Cross, IHS, Jesuit, another Catholic symbology there. His wife, Georgetown University, Jesuit, all Jesuits. And, they all work together. And I'll get onto some videos about some of that later. Which the main video is this one. Which, even in other parts, you have Donald and Hillary together at a Jesuit it's Jesuit get-together, Jesuit dinner. Trump said he grew up going to those dinners. Anyways, Hillary's there too, and she's a well-known Luciferian. It's clear that Luciferianism is compatible with Catholicism. That's the high-end stuff. So, let's go finish this video. I got most of the stuff I wanted to get out. I just want to say, now it's kind of crap quality, but Hitler's got his Knight to Malta cross. Whoever that is has theirs. And then here's another. So, like with Putin there, KGB was definitely secret society, Jesuit ongoings. We had been discussing about Stalin and Lenin being Jesuit, Trump as well, and Putin. And you even have, the Shriner level, Islamic Freemasonry all over, with like Obama as well. You know, I've got another video that I guess I should add with Obama talking great stuff about the Pope and all this other stuff. Even like George Bush, he said when he looked in the Pope's eyes in an interview, he saw God. It's clearly, they're all just Catholic. They're all just subservient to Catholicism and Islam as well. It's all Luciferian. Muhammad was Gnostic origins. I have a video on that as well. And, I'm trying to align all this stuff so a person can study. And that's where I'm trying to get through this video. But once I can get all the context and alignment of everything together, a person can figure things out on their own. That's what I'm trying to get conveyed, is how do you get everything in alignment in the right lens, and how do you begin studying this and keeping the context in mind. That's one of the main things, is because if you just went to my playlist and started watching random videos, it might take a year or something to really get a good grasp of things like I have so far. Not that I'm smart or anything. I think anybody could watch any of this stuff and figure things out for themselves, and probably be smarter than I am about all this, because I'm not very smart. I'm just a random person. I'm not smart at all. I've been kind of dumb with school. So, if I can figure some of this stuff out, then, you can too. Don't think that it's complex. Just try and understand. And yeah, let's finish this video and I'll get to the next one. Alright, with that, I'm going to go find that clip of Obama with the Pope. We're here with Joggler 66. He's got a lot of stuff figured out himself. I recommend studying from him as well, especially this playlist about the Babylonian sun worship, source of all false religion, Babylon mystery religion. He reads this book out, and it does align a lot of stuff. He's unraveling a little bit of prophecy and stuff. And he also compiles some images about some of these people, like with the Pope. And this is where I'm going to get that clip. There you have Merkel with the Pope as well. Angela Merkel from Germany. There's the Queen. Clearly the royal family is Catholic. Where was the video? Alright, so this one is the video I was looking for. It's his reading of The Secret History of the Jesuits, a very important book as well. But he's compiled certain stuff in video format that's relevant. Now, if you look, I think that's Biden. That's that other one guy. I don't like him. I forgot his name now. And then this is a lot of U.S. diplomats and politicians and everything. Government. This is the government. All applauding the Pope. There's something very dark and fishy going on here.
Do this work.
Catholic can have control and access for the coming world government.
Simply put, this country and this world benefit from your commitment to Jesuit principles, to being men.
As a graduate of another great Jesuit institution, Xavier University, I have great affection for the value and purpose of a Jesuit education.
What that means is, in preparation for that world government, the Roman Catholic institution, especially since the establishment of the Jesuit order in 1541, throughout all these 500 years, they've been in preparation and through infiltration and penetration of every level of society in order to take over the world politically and religiously.
What a beautiful day the Lord has made. Holy Father, on behalf of Michelle and myself, welcome to the White House.
There are two doctrines that define very well these.
Alright, that's all I wanted to get across. Yeah. It's plain as day. It's plain as day. There's nothing hidden. I'll say, yeah, Ronald Reagan was also a Jesuit. I'm pretty certain Codeword Barbelon goes pretty deeply into all that as well. Again, I would highly recommend that book, and study a lot of these books as well. That's another thing. All these Jews, Soros, Rothschilds, I forget some of the other ones. They've all been Jesuits, Catholic, Knights of Malta, whatever Templar order you want to go with. Always, everything always ties back to the Vatican. These are Jesuits, not Jews. They don't follow the Torah. Even the Jews today are Kabbalist Gnostics. That's, again, you go back to Jacob Frank and Frankism and Sebastianism or whatever, and discern the Gnostic Kabbalist Jews for who they are. They worship Lucifer and they follow the Vatican, who supports them. Even the denominational churches that were controlled in America, that's controlled by Freemasons and other Templar orders in the Vatican, they support Israel. This is all prophetic. It's all Luciferianism. It's nothing is as it appears to be. It's all under a false guise. I do want to say that's a Freemason handshake right there, with the thumb on the knuckle. That's pretty common among Freemasons, and that's just another Templar order. Despite their occultism, again, occultism is the Vatican. Their upper echelons have always been pagan Luciferians. They've never been a Christian church since Constantine. They've been killing the Christians since then, which I have ample videos like A Lamp in the Dark, which starts covering that. You go study James Atkin Wiley in the playlist I have for him, and it covers the Waldenses and Catholicism. Then you have the history of actually, let me go find that book. Crap. I'll do that later. Anyways, yeah. Well, that's one video down. This video, you probably have to skip through a lot of that. It covers the how Constantine was never actually a Christian. I would say it's very important, along with a lamp in the dark, as I was saying earlier. So we're going to get over to what I was saying earlier. Now, I'm not going to go through this video yet. Now, Joggler does compile certain things about Trump being a coadjutor of the Jesuits. But first, I'll get through this video. It's only 13 minutes long. And it's a very important video. That's one of the other Jews I was wanting to talk about, Henry Kissinger. You'll see in this video, you know, it's he's just another Jesuit already.
You people are mind controlled. You're under mind control. This is the real agenda right here. This is the real story. There's the American flag, subservient to the Vatican. They're flying the Vatican flag. He is on this Cardinal Dolan, Timothy Dolan. This guy's a very, extremely powerful Catholic, one of the most powerful Catholics in America right now. And here he's got Chump and Hillary. But notice the stand here. It's kind of like these two are almost like at attention militarily, and he's kind of at the parade rest or whatever. Thought that was interesting. But notice also the circle of light there above his head, like he's the saint. And here's the two little servants of the Vatican.
What can we say about Donald Trump? Is he bought and paid for, like Clinton? Is he part of the establishment's plan? Is he just candidate number 2? Because they're portraying this idea in the press that they're dead against Trump being in or being selected as president, and it would seem that the New World Order would hate Trump to be the next president of America. But he said a few things at this event which makes me think that he's just one of them.
We can also agree on the need to stand up to anti-Catholic bias, to defend religious liberty, and to create a culture that celebrates life.
And then he goes on to say this.
And we've got to come together, not only as a nation, but as a world community. Thank you very much. God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you. Thank you.
So he's talking about the one world government there,
and we've
world
got
community.
we've got to come together, not only as a nation, but as a world community.
And he says the religious leaders here are to be an example for everybody else.
And the great religious leaders here tonight give us all an example that we can follow.
Okay, I don't think they're probably that good of an example.
In the scriptures that we Jews and Christians and Muslims cherish,
and we've got to come together, not only as a nation, but as a world community.
This cross, this thing, and there's a crown above it. We couldn't make out what these different medals are there on his shoulder. But let me just show you what this thing is. This is the Order of the British Empire, OBE, for God and the Empire. You say, what's significant about that? Well, this order, if you do the research into it, you can look into it more, but it's a British Commonwealth order. In other words, it's people that are subservient to the throne of England, the throne of England being subservient to the Vatican. It is basically a Shriner level.
Of the Holy Father, Pope Francis. His message about rejecting a mindset of hostility. His calls to reduce inequality. His warnings about climate change.
We can also agree on the need to stand up to anti-Catholic bias.
Stand up to anti-Catholic bias. Well, then I guess I'm going to be in trouble, huh? Because I'm anti-Catholic. Because I'm against Roman Catholicism. Oh, but he's the lesser of two evils, right? Oh, you know, Hillary's such a wicked, liberal and thinks, and she is, but he'll be so much better. They're both servants of the Vatican.
So, folks, this is all in control of the Jesuits. So the joke being here is that Henry Kissinger and the other people that he mentioned are Catholic. I mean, what you're getting told here is the truth in the form of jokes.
And without the amazing support of the many devoted Catholics on stage. You know, Catholics like Henry Kissinger, Howard Rubenstein.
Right, all Jews, apparently, and according to the internet conspiracy truthers, the Jews run the world. So this guy's telling you the truth here in the form of a joke.
And without the amazing support of the many devoted Catholics on stage. You know, Catholics like Henry Kissinger.
Okay, because they're not Jews, they are Catholic.
Got to come together as he puts up 666.
Not only as a nation, but as a world community.
Come together not only as a nation, but as a world community. He just called for the New World Order, people.
And the great religious leaders here tonight give us all an example that we can follow.
So Trump has been coming here his whole life, apparently, according to this statement here.
But I have great memories of coming to this dinner with my father over the years when I was a young man. Great experience for me.
So this guy, Trump, is definitely on the payroll of Rome. Something odd here happens that I thought was worth mentioning. The camera switches to Trump, and the cardinal standing next to him starts swaying and nudges Trump. So I just thought I'd point this out. Check it out.
Life is your greatest gift to us. Teach us to respect life from its natural beginning to its natural end. Help us to reach out to the marginalized in our society.
So he nudges Trump, and Trump starts nodding.
Life is your greatest gift to us. Teach us to respect life from its natural beginning to its natural end. Help us
And then Trump opens his eyes because he's wondering what's happened.
To reach out to the marginalized in our society.
If you're falling for this Vatican psyop type of a thing, that, oh, he's so much better than she's going to be, he's the first man I've ever heard running for president that said we need to stop anti-Catholic bias. We need to fight against that. I never heard anybody else say that. You need to get right with God, people. persecution is almost at our doorstep now.
We're having some fun here tonight, and that's good. On a personal note, what an amazing honor it is to be with all of you. And I want to congratulate Hillary on getting the nomination, and we're in there fighting, and over the next 19 days, somebody's going to be chosen. We'll see what happens. But I have great memories of coming to this dinner with my father over the years when I was a young man. Great experience for me. This was always a special experience for him and me to be together. We can also agree on the need to stand up to anti-Catholic bias. We can also agree on the need to stand up to anti-Catholic bias.
Io vi parlo come fratello. Grazie al Signore perché ci unisca tutti. E avanti, siamo fratelli, perché questo è un miracolo, il miracolo dell'unità è incominciato.
I mean, we could have another 8 years of Hillary Clinton and the worst mess that anybody could make out of a nation. You're going to be held seriously to account by God if you don't vote. And you're going to find that out before this broadcast is over. You're going to be guilty of murder. You're going to be guilty of an abomination of God. You're going to be guilty for every baby that's aborted from this election forward.
And you certainly don't need to be Catholic to be inspired by the humility and heart of the Holy Father, Pope Francis, or to embrace his message.
Till we all come in the unity of the faith. Amen. Amen. Amen.
We can also agree on the need to stand up to anti-Catholic bias, to defend religious liberty. America is in many ways divided like it's never been before. And the great religious leaders here tonight give us all an example that we can follow. We're living in a time and age that we never thought.
I just want to say this guy over here seems very anxious and dreadful about whatever revelations he's having, maybe about the stuff that he's talking about that is clearly prophesied for end times, and them all knowing they're all Luciferians might be dreading the coming years ahead.
Possible before. And we've got to come together, not only as a nation, but as a world community.
If there is no more protest, how can there be a Protestant church?
Which I want to say, like him, now this is why I brought this other video out. This guy, along with like Kenneth Copeland and a lot of his prosperity preachers, they all work together with the Vatican, which I will play this video later. This is all the denominations uniting under the Vatican in ecumenism, which is a great heresy, and it's unbiblical and is pretty much fulfilling the prophecies of the Antichrist kingdom. But within the prosperity stuff with that guy and all those prosperity preachers, I really highly recommend this video from Good Fight Ministries. I recommend their channel. I didn't mean to click that. Okay, it didn't go. Okay, it did go. I'll make use of this. Their playlist, their focus is, you know, largely Satanism and Luciferianism within the churches, within pop culture, Hollywood, and many years ago, he did this video, or this research into the Holy Laughter movement. I don't know why it's not backing up. And that's where this video comes from. So, talks about Holy Laughter, the New Wine movement, and all this stuff. I'm not going to do a whole video about this stuff. It's very gut-wrenching to listen to. It's very occultic. All the prosperity churches by, this is like tens of millions, hundreds of millions of Christians throughout Africa and America and even Europe that are adopting this demonic spirit en masse, and they're becoming cult-like, and it's not good for anyone, especially if you're not even religious. This should be taken very seriously, but it's not, and it's covered up and suppressed, and nobody's talking about it except this guy, and Christians that are rejecting it as demonic. And again, it's just fulfilling more of Revelations. So I'll get back to that video.
Maybe now we're all Catholics again.
You're going to be held seriously to account by God. You're going to be guilty of murder.
We can also agree on the need to stand up to anti-Catholic bias.
Till we all come.
Believe me,
In the unity
if
of
I
the
run
faith,
and I win, I will be the greatest
Amen.
representative of the Christians that they've
You're
had
going
in
to
a
be
long
guilty of
time.
murder.
Of the Holy Father, Pope Francis.
The protest is over.
I'm proud to be a Christian, and as president, I will not allow Christianity to be consistently attacked and weakened.
If there is no more protest, how can there be a Protestant church?
All right. So it's very depressing stuff. No, I haven't gone through this video yet. I do want to. It's probably loud. So I did want to cover the Illuminatus and Jesuit Illuminati connections, which Codeword Barbelon unravels all of that completely. This guy, Josh Reeves, I suppose, unravels a lot of that. It also exposes a lot of their occult symbology. I will go into this video since it's a fairly short one. This is all kind of just aligning what I have on my playlist, like I said, so the person can get the context, get the evidence, and start digging deeper for themselves. So here we go.
In the show, some of this research I was doing pertaining to the Alumbrados Society and how this was the origins of the Illuminati. I'd like to read something for you here now. The historian Marcelino Menendez Pelayo found the same name, Alumbrados, as early as 1492 and traced the group to a Gnostic origin. These were the illumined ones. Menendez thought their views were promoted in Spain through influences from Italy. One of their earliest leaders, born in Salamanca, was a laborer's daughter known as La Beta de Paradita. She came to the notice of the Inquisition in 1511 by claiming to hold colloquies with Jesus and the Virgin Mary. Some high patronage saved her from a rigorous denunciation, and Ignatius of Loyola was, while studying at Salamanca in 1527, was brought before an ecclesiastical commission on a charge of sympathy with the Alumbrados, but escaped with an admonition. Others were not so fortunate. Now, notice how they had these people in their custody, but once they found out what they were really doing and who they were working for, they let them go. In 1529, a congregation of naive adherents at Toledo was subjected to whippings and imprisonment. Greater rigors followed, and for about a century, alleged connection with the Alumbrados sent many to the Inquisition, especially at Cordoba. The Alumbrados were officially condemned in an edict of the Grand Inquisition in 1623, yet the light of their shining ones has not ceased to shine. The shining ones is what the Alumbrados was. That was the precursor of what eventually became the Illuminati. And so when Weishaupt came into the picture in 1776, Weishaupt wasn't, you got to understand, at that time you had, the Vatican had already been around for a long time, and they had done they'd been behind the Crusades, and they'd been behind all this stuff, and anybody who had religious beliefs outside of Christianity and the church were, considered heretics and blah, blah, blah. But what's funny is I've seen all these historical examples of every time that the priest class and every time that the Holy Roman Empire would go after a specific ideology, they would then absorb that ideology into their power structure and then use it to further their own agenda. That's what they do. And this has been going on for hundreds of years, and that's exactly what we know as the modern day term Illuminati was. Because they basically persecuted all the people who were out of the Alumbrado Society, who were, was really the first Illuminati. And then what did they do? Well, they sent Weishaupt in to infiltrate the Masonic lodges to get the rest of the information. And then once they had all the secret knowledge, because all of this stuff ultimately went back to Solomon's Temple. And then once they had that, Weishaupt was then allowed to set up the quote-unquote Illuminati under the guise of it being a Catholic order, because he was a former Jesuit as well. And this is where you had it become a part of the continuing control of the power structure of the Vatican and the priest class itself, and beyond just something, because probably on its own, it may not have become what it was. This may have well have been something that was being started by people to do good things. But these are the people who came up with the ideology that the Jesuits came up with the ideology that the end justifies the means. And that is the same modus operandi these people use today. The Modern History Project introduction briefly overviews the Alumbrados as the Alumbrados, enlightened or illuminated ones, was a mysterious movement in Spain during the 16th and 17th centuries that believed that when a person achieved a certain degree of perfection, they experienced a vision of God and then entered into direct communion with the Holy Spirit. At this point, the soul would enter a state of limbo, not advancing or going back. Once this level was achieved, a person didn't have to perform any good works or get involved in any religious activity because they had received the light. Boy, imagine that. Imagine if that was, if we were all allowed to have that, you wouldn't have to, you receive the light, and once they received the light, they would possess superior human intelligence. Oh, well, we can't have that getting out to the public, especially if you're running religion, can you? Nope. Wow. Gene D'Scola connects.
Pretty much. all they want is power and knowledge. It goes back to Gnosticism with gnosis, knowledge, enlightenment, all this stuff. And it's just a power thing because they don't have repentance or remorse. They don't have conscience. They don't have love. So they have to rely on power and knowledge and supremacy and deception, because they don't want people knowing what they know, because they're just Luciferians and they're evil. So they try and hide all of their knowledge and all this stuff through deception and Machiavellianism, so they can control and have power over people. And it's just evil, and it's contrary entirely to the Bible and how it says, be honest, be forthcoming, there's nothing hidden which won't be known, stuff like that. And that's why I'm here exposing all of this. There's a lot of people, they might fear exposing some of this because they're involved in those groups. So in those groups, you gotta keep your knowledge hidden. You gotta deceive, dissemble, detract from the truth. That's what they teach in their own doctrines, and Freemasonry and secret societies and Jesuitism and the higher end of the Catholic Church, even from like the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th centuries. The Catholic Church didn't exist until the 3rd century, but the early church fathers that were part of the Gnostic group that arose in the 1st century, they were talking about keeping their knowledge hidden, their secret doctrines and stuff like that, because they were Gnostic, and that was Luciferianism, and they didn't want anyone knowing about what they were doing and what they believed. That's the early church fathers of the Vatican, not the early church fathers of the true Christian Bible and apostleship and stuff. That was the ones that went and formed the earlier makings of the Vatican, and what eventually Constantine took over and consolidated, forming the papacy. So that's the difference we're talking about here. Lack of love, lack of compassion, lack of conscience, lack of remorse for doing bad things, secretiveness, deceitfulness, pretty much nothing but vices as Gnosticism goes. Lack of the true gospel. They don't follow the Bible. They only follow their secret doctrines and stuff that have no biblical basis, and the Bible refutes them. The Bible says, Jesus said himself, there's nothing I'm hiding. I came and told you everything so that you may know. And that's how the entire Bible is laid out, is that, I'm telling you everything so you may know the truth. And one thing is mysticism, and this type of enlightenment stuff is unbiblical. It's contrary to God's Spirit entirely. So it's worth reading. It's worth reading the Bible, evaluating the prophecies. That's any Christian's duty, given by Jesus in Mark 13. Keep watch, and keeping watch is paying attention to prophecy and the state of the world and all the fulfillment, which is what all this stuff is. And even as an not Christian person, or it would be worth evaluating all of this to evaluate whether it's all true, because if it is all true, then prophecy is going to keep going until Jesus returns. And when he returns, you don't want to be on the losing side. Like, they might have taken over, but they're going to lose to Jesus, and then you're going to be judged, and you don't want to be unrepentant side of peoples. You know, you want to recognize the truth, and you want to come to God and figure out if it's true or not. You know, that's what I'm trying to encourage here. Whether you're a Christian, whether you're not, whether you're in a false denomination, you should take this information, go evaluate it, go study your Bible, study from some of these people that I'm compiling, and discern the truth for yourself with the Bible, and trust in God, trust in His Spirit to guide you. Don't trust in anyone else. You know, you don't have to trust me. I'm not asking for that. I'm just asking a person to go evaluate the potential, so that if this is all true, which, you know, I came from agnostic, I had to evaluate all this. I had to evaluate science and figure out, hey, it's all inconsistent, and the Bible is still 100% true. You don't have to distort the Bible to match anything today. You have to figure out if anything today is actually true or not, because most of everything today was developed by history of Freemasons and Luciferians and the Vatican and pagan Luciferians, and, you know, can you really trust them? And from what we can see, no, you can't. You have to go evaluate for yourself and discern for yourself whether any of it's true. And I would say use the Bible as a good basis, because it's always been exposing them. And, you know, if you go in deep enough, I think you'll come to the same conclusions I have. I've run into the same people that, yeah, they had to do the same things I did, and they came to the same conclusions. And, you know, some of them I did study from. So it's worth evaluating all of this, to escape deception, for one, to evaluate if it's true or not, and if it is true, to save your own soul, to be able to live an eternal happiness and enjoy God's eternity, because it's going to be good. You know, He's told us why everything's bad, and that's not eternity. And God's not a wrathful God. He is forgiving. He is merciful. He just wants people to escape the darkness and come to Him and find that light in their own free will, and, you know, seek Him and seek that love. He doesn't want to punish anyone. That's not the point of things. He's not wrathful. He doesn't want justice. He doesn't want vengeance. He wants to avoid that for all people. That's what Jesus came for, was sacrifice Himself for God's enemies, because God loves everybody. He wants them to repent and be able to exist in heaven and in New Jerusalem. So there's going to be a lot of stuff going down here soon with all of this that I've been showing you, because their plans are going to be keeping on moving. So there's not terribly too much time, and now is the time to seek knowledge and understanding and evaluate these things. And you know, I hope that I leave a positive impact and influence on some people, so that they can figure things out for themselves. And not just that, but escape deceptions and the worldliness, and you know, being enslaved into sin. And not just that, but these people's manipulations. Like, they've been conditioning us for, you know, hundreds of years, but today, like being raised on the internet. You know, I grew up with Hollywood. I grew up with music. I grew up with the internet. I grew up with all the stuff that everyone else has too. I grew up thinking a lot of other Christian stuff because I wasn't Christian. I just thought, hey, you know, I don't know. But when I did start coming over to Christianity, I thought, hey, you know, most of this stuff is pretty well accepted, you know, like tribulation theories and all that. That, you know, I just took it for granted that, hey, you know, that's the way things ought to go. But that's not the case either. You know, there's a lot of false doctrines, false gospels. Anything that's seen as normal should be evaluated. And that's what I'm trying to get across is don't trust anything that even you know. Don't trust anything that is taken for granted as true. Just evaluate everything for yourself. Don't rely on a source of authority, you know. Like I used to think, even, you know, it sounds crazy, but I used to think evolution was true, and I don't think so anymore. That might seem crazy. I had assumed, like, yeah, you know, that's got to be true, because the source of authority seems so well founded and so well substantiated, and everything added together, and like, you know, it makes sense until you evaluate the inconsistencies, until you evaluate whether it's true or not. Because I'm telling you, those people, they didn't. All the people that compile all this information to add it up, they didn't evaluate that. Because when I went and cross-examined whether it is true or not, and what people are on the opposing side, you know, you run into some crazy stuff, sure. But there is some very well articulated points, some very well proven inaccuracies and inconsistencies and invalidities that if you dig deep enough, yeah, you realize, hey, atheism, secularism is just wrong on every front, and they have no evidence, and what little evidence they espouse to have doesn't add up. So, you know, it's another depressing thing, and you know, I just want a person to go evaluate things the way I have and test it. You know, test God, test His truth, test it. He put it there so you can test it and dig for yourself and check. And I did, and I'm telling you, it's all true. God is true. God is always truthful. God is always, you know, beyond a doubt. I know God. It's not that I have faith. It's that I trust Him, because, you know, what little trust I started out with, just to see whether it can be trusted, time and time again, it's always panned out, and He's always proven Himself. And it's, you know, I could say tens of thousands of instances where it's like, okay, you know, I can't question you anymore. I can only take your word for it, you know. So I encourage a person to go do that, you know. Go do that. And you don't have to trust me. You don't have to trust anyone else. Just go check. And it don't matter who you are. You should go check whether you got something wrong, whether something you might presume is true is not, and whether any of this is true. Because, you know, I've had to debate thousands of people of all different beliefs to learn a lot of stuff, just to see what they thought. You know, I've evaluated pretty much every religion, and, you know, the only thing that's proven true and accurate to reality is God and His love. And if you start from His love, I think you will discover a lot of stuff, because love and reality is one inconsistency that points to God. And, you know, if you evaluate things by love, you'll discover that it all leads back to God. So I guess that's where I'm going to cut it here. I'm about 2 hours in. I might go do more on these other videos that I got. I'll go ahead and explain certain things, I guess. Let me clear my nose. So, explaining certain things, I recommend this video. Constantine was a Gnostic, Neoplatonic, Mithraic occultist. He was never Christian. I was going to play this video. Pretty much all of the denominations are uniting under the Vatican. And that just shows that they've all been taken over. The contention of Protestantism from the 1500s has never been solved. The Vatican is still heretical. The Vatican still contradicts the Bible 100%. The Vatican still matches the prophecies of the whore of Babylon, the Antichrist, the seed of Satan, which was Caesar worshipping in Pergamos when Revelations was written. None of that's changed. It's still all true. We're still in the status of 1500s. These people, these denominations, are just the harlots of the whore. And they've been taken over and formed by the Jesuits in a counter-reformation. That's the history. So, don't trust anybody. Now, we have Islamic stuff. Islamic eschatology shows that they'll worship the Antichrist and false prophet. It's worth watching that video if you're Christian and you want to know the truth of it. I got another playlist on my YouTube. That has more stuff about Islam. I haven't gone too deeply into it yet, but it shows that they just worship Lucifer, and it also shows, okay, that's not the playlist. I should have added that into it. Oh wait, I added it to the top. Maybe I didn't. Alright, so the secret Gnostic origins of Islam, that's where I recommend starting. And even the chain of Muhammad's kind of shows that Islam, between those two, Islam is a Gnostic cult, that Muhammad was raised Catholic, well, not raised Catholic, he married a Catholic, he studied under a bunch of mystic Jews, mystic Arabian pagans, in the Vatican as well. And that's all Gnosticism, Kabbalism, stuff like that. So there was a chain of Muhammad's going back, thousands of years, that were all Jewish mystics, and that was the Moloch, Bel worshipping type of Jews throughout history that were abolished by Judaism, destroyed by God, but they still persisted, and this is where Islam comes from, as well as with the Vatican, and their origins are Gnostic. I highly recommend those videos. Inquisition Update, Codeword Barbelon. I highly recommend Tom Freese and Inquisition Update. And studying from him as well. Dave Hunt, some people have some bad things to say about him, but everything I've seen he is very accurate on. He talks about ecumenism and the New World Order and the Antichrist kingdom forming. I'd recommend these videos to get an introduction into occult symbology throughout Hollywood and everything. This documentary, 3-part, goes into early church history and how the Vatican was persecuting Christians and pagan and all that stuff. I highly recommend that. Holy Laughter, to learn about the Kundalini spirit and the demonic spirit that the Vatican uses, and the Jesuits and the secret societies, and how that's translating into these false denominations that are also united under them. I'm kind of iffy on Walter Veith. You could study a fair bit of that and get a glossary understanding of Freemasonry and Kabbalah, but I would recommend largely studying from Codeword Barbelon and learning about a lot of that from them. Got some stuff on the Inquisition. Earlier we had shoot, did not mean to do that. So earlier, the Nazi Croatian Holocaust / Inquisition from the Vatican and Hitler in Croatia. This is a very good documentary to unload all of that. It's very depressing to watch, but I highly recommend it. James Akin Wiley, highly recommend his works to learn about the history and the prophetic alignment of the Vatican being Antichrist and the Whore of Babylon. Joggler 66, he unravels a lot of it too, especially the Babylon mystery religion stuff. Some of the books that he reads out and explains is very important. And even here with Dave Hunt exposing Billy Graham, Billy Graham was just another Jesuit coadjutor. He joined the Vatican basically, and ecumenism, and pretty much just another heretic. He wasn't a proper Christian, and yeah, I might unravel some more stuff about certain videos, but for now, I'd say this is about all I need to do for these. I guess I'll split it in 2 videos, and that'll be 2 hours roughly, because I might cut out some